Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another live chat for the Support is Sexy podcast. I am super excited about our episode today because our special guest, Amma Gordon, is going to talk all things fertility and baby and support. This is all about support. So I'm going to tell you about Amma, about her company, Global Fertility Connections, and about my own journey with fertility, with having a baby, with building a
Yes.
family, with all the things. But I'm super excited to have Amma here. Let me tell you about her. We're going to jump right in. This is definitely a conversation where I want, if you're watching this live with us, for you to chime in with your questions and comments. Anyone who watches the replay later, I always say you can leave your comments as well. We'll make sure to pop in and check and get back to you on that. Also, in the description, again, if you're watching this live, you'll see Amma's website, globalfertilityconnections.com. I got that right, Amma?
Yes, you got it right.
globalfertilityconnections.com. So everybody knows from the beginning what the website is, what her company is. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you can go check out globalfertilityconnections.com. But let me tell you a little bit about Amma and Global Fertility Connections. So Global Fertility Connections is an intended parent concierge service that provides education, support, we're all about it, and personalized guidance to intended parents that are unique to their fertility needs. We specialize in egg freezing, surrogacy, and egg donation, some of the most difficult areas to understand and navigate for intended parents. Whether single, couples, heterosexual, or same sex, yay, happy pride,
Yes.
cancer survivor, or HIV plus, Global Fertility Connections provides a personalized plan to help intended parents reach their goal of having a baby with trusted, ethical, and credible reproductive providers, and partners, right, Amma?
Yeah.
And as a Black woman who has her own fertility story, Amma also works with Black fertility doctors, psychologists, and so on to assist her clients. While her business helps all in need, she strives to drive awareness around the disparities that exist for Black patients and surrogacy clients. Now, before we jump in, I have to tell you all how I met Miss Amma. And she doesn't know this part of the story either.
Yeah, this will
And
be
Paula,
interesting to hear
I
for the
know,
first time.
yes.
I know
And
you just
Paula,
went through a little bit of a mouthful describing what we do, but
yeah.
hopefully people understand that we do so much that but it's all about fertility support, surrogacy support, and just helping people navigate through that whole journey from beginning to end.
Absolutely. And Paula Dean Fuller, thank you so much. Said fantastic topic. Thank you for the space. Absolutely. Latrina Belt said, I need this. All right, Latrina, we are here for you. So we want to hear your questions. Please go ahead and questions, comments, go ahead and drop them in. We will make sure we ask Amma everything that we can. So here's the story, y'all. When I was in my 30s, at 36, my doctor, Dr. Robin Brown in New York, wonderful woman. I'm in Georgia now, so I don't see her anymore. But Dr. Robin Brown was telling me since I was 36, maybe even earlier, to freeze my eggs. I might have told you this part of the story. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, it's okay. No, it's okay. I'm seeing someone. No, it's going to be fine. La, 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 la. I'm okay. I got time. I got time. I got time. Right. Dr. Renee. Hey, Dr. Renee Matthews says, love this. I got time. I got time. I got time. This is me, Renee, saying I got time to freeze my eggs. And it wasn't just something that was on my radar. So I should mention this was over 10 years ago. I
And it's
only look
common too.
25, but
What you're saying, what you were thinking
it,
about is so common.
I was thinking, oh, that's only if you have problems, or that's only if or this is not something, or I'll be honest, I was thinking, I don't know any Black women who do that. But Dr. Robin Brown, a Black woman doctor, was telling me to do it. So she told me it took me 3 years. So after whatever breakup I had, I was like, you know what? Let me look into this and find out about it. So that is when I finally froze my eggs. I was 39 years old. Since then, I have convinced at least two of my closest friends, young women who are younger than me, Black women, to freeze their eggs as well. And both are very happy that they did that. So that's 39. Then I figure I got time. I got time. I got time. And all of a sudden, it's almost 10 years later, right? I have a birthday in my 40s. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Am I going to do this family thing? And I think last year really made me reflective on this, the pandemic, family, what does it look like? What really matters to you and all of that.
And
So
so in the fact
I
that so much can change in a
and
moment, you know what I
so
mean?
much can change in a moment.
And as
Yes.
Black
So
women, it's almost like we look so young. People keep telling us that we look so young that there's a disconnect between the age of our inside and what the age that we look like on the
Look on the
outside. So
outside.
that
Exactly.
contributes to, we're like, oh no, we're
Oh,
young.
I
Yeah,
got
I
you.
mean, we look young.
Exactly. But the biology is still doing what the biology does, right? So the
Hmm.
day before I had a conversation, I swear it was February. No, my birthday's February 20th of this year. Had a birthday, had those conversations with people, with my mom, my close friends, like, wow, I'm really seriously thinking about what does this baby journey look like for me? What does family look like? And I said, I wish there was someone I could talk to just about all of this. I don't know who is that person, how. So you all know, you should know if you watch me, listen to the podcast, anything. I'm all about support. Who is that person? I'm living that question. I really need February 26th. My birthday is February 20th. February 26th, just to show you all how this worked. I meet Alma on a Clubhouse chat. She wasn't even part of the panel of people
I
who she
sure
should have been.
wasn't. I just
And
had to raise my hand.
she raised her hand and came up and she started talking and giving us all this information. It was myself and some other women, some other doctors, different people from there talking about fertility journey. Alma started talking, y'all. I was like, time out. Please give me your website right now. I'm contacting you. I contacted her while we were still doing the chat. So this was just days later. So I just wanted to share my own story and coming across Alma, meeting her. I didn't even know a person like her existed, that an agency like this existed. So I know that was a long story, but I wanted you to hear about it and we're going to get into it. And with
Yeah.
that, welcome,
And
Alma.
I'm so glad that you reached out, especially because
Yes.
there is a vacancy of, women, Black women within the fertility industry that also specialize in surrogacy, right? It's almost like the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller,
Right.
and I don't know many others that do exactly what my company does and what we do. So I'm just happy to share it with so many people and as much people as possible, because we all want to save the world and help other Black women and all that good stuff.
Exactly. And Black women will save the world. So Latrina already popped in with a question. Latrina, we're going to make sure we get to that. I want Alma to tell us a little bit more about Global Fertility Connections and how she works with her clients. But Latrina's question is, what do they do for women with HR negative blood type? HR negative women are
All
high
right.
risk,
Yeah.
RH negative women are high risk pregnancy. So we'll get into that. But Alma, just give us sort of an overview of the ways that you do support your clients and what that looks like from your end.
Yeah. So essentially, what we do, and I'll start from the very beginning. So, if you were to book a consultation, we set up some time to get all your history information, what your challenges have been. And a lot of times, by the time clients come to us, they've already been to a few doctors, had a few conversations, might have gone down the Google rabbit hole. So, some of it is sort of dispelling some of the myths that they might have read or heard. Some of it is course correcting the journey so that it's more personalized. Because much like, what Latrina asked, every individual has their own unique circumstance, whether it's a high risk pregnancy because of blood type, whether you've had previous surgeries, whether it's endometriosis, whether it's fibroids, whether it's unexplained lack of being able to get pregnant, or, same-sex couple, right? I always say this, kind of just break it down to sort of high school biology class. You need three things to have a baby. You need sperm, you need eggs, and you need someone to carry it, right? And when you're single, right, you're missing one of those pieces if you're a woman, right? And maybe more than one of those pieces. Maybe you unfortunately may not be able to carry on your own, right? So now you have one piece. Or you may not have your own eggs, but you can carry. Or you may need to get donor eggs, and you can't, necessarily carry on your own. And you also have to get sperm, which is often the case for many people, whether it's same-sex couples, singles, and sometimes heterosexual couples. So first is understanding where they are, where they've been, what they need. Right. And then we get all that information from them. And we have clinical advisors on staff with 25 years experience, focused on reproductive endocrinology with a specialty in what's called third party, which is surrogacy. Right. So third party is whenever you need any piece of those three components that I said from biology, egg, sperm, and someone to carry it. If you need any of that from a third person, a third party, that's called third party reproduction. So surrogacy is when someone else is the carrier. So that includes another person. So that falls under the umbrella of third party. So we gather all your information. We make sure that we review the case with our clinical advisor. And then we compile all the information we have that is most important to you. So whether it's budget, whether it's location, whether it's success rates, and also all of our partners that we work with. So our partners include surrogacy agencies, egg donation agencies, and fertility clinics all around the country, actually world, because it's not just the name. We actually are global. My business partner and co-founder is located in Australia. So we also work through the legal differences because unfortunately, gestational surrogacy or compensated gestational surrogacy is illegal in certain countries. So people are forced to kind of come to the US. And then even within the US, there's still a few states left that it's not legal also. So just understanding those regulations, what the options are, we get all those things together for you and put together a plan of recommendations of which partners or which clinics you should, we recommend that you work with based on your particular needs. And it can be something as simple as, I just want a woman that's Black. I want I want a surrogacy agency that has, Black egg donors. It could be, I actually don't care where the clinic is located. I don't care where the gestational carrier is located. But I want to make sure that, they're this age range or whatever it is. So we just understand all those things and do all the work for you. And that's why what I ideally like is when people come to us as early as possible versus after they've sort of gotten, analysis paralysis and spoken to tons of people and are kind of confused. And so then as a result, a lot of the time is spent on, okay, let's correct this, let's add this, let's tweak that, versus, okay, it's a blank slate. Here's what you need to know. Tell us what's most important to you. And here are the recommendations. And the great thing is that my business partner and co-founder has been working in surrogacy for many years, both internationally and in the US. So we have the inside scoop on all the clinics, right? So the doctors, who does this, who does that, what's their success rates, all that good stuff that you can't even find on Google. So essentially that's what we do. And once we pair our clients with the right reproductive service, we then follow them along the journey. It's not like when you drop your kids off to school and we're like, all right, you're good now. We paired you with the right people. See you later. No, we make sure that because we were the first point of contact and we understand you, we continue that relationship as long, as you continue with the clinics, as, whatever your, if there's a something that you don't necessarily understand and you can't get in contact with your doctor, we have a clinical advisor on staff that can answer. So, essentially what we do is we do all the hard stuff, dispel all the confusing stuff, answer all the questions. And because my co-founder is in Australia, we are available 24 hours a day because, it is 1:23 Eastern time right now, which means it is 3:23 a.m. So when I'm asleep, she's up and our team there is up. We also have consultants in Europe as well. We have consultants that speak various languages. So Spanish, French. I also speak French, German, and obviously English as well. So I know it was long-winded, but it's just so much to navigate through. We do all that stuff for our clients.
Well, yes, thank you. We needed that. I'm glad it was long-winded, and that's not even probably the half of it. And another reason that I just have to chime in, I just remembered when you mentioned your partner, is about what I think was divine timing with me meeting Amma. I told her the doctor that performed my egg retrieval, Dr. T, and she's like, "Oh, I know Dr. T. It's just this is all meant to be, right? So embrace this moment." So I do want to get to Latrina's question in case she has to go. Talk to us a little bit about. Thank you again for your question, Latrina. What do you do for women with Rh negative blood type? Are there certain recommendations or anything like that, or any kind of pairings that you do? I mean, Amma is not a doctor, but certainly has recommendations.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always preface that we're not a doctor, but we work with doctors and some of it is seep through osmosis. So what we would do is get all the information in addition to not just your blood type, but other things. So BMI, your history, things, genetic makeup. And if you were, say, for instance, wanted to carry yourself, we would also understand the testing of the partner. So whether it's donor sperm or a husband, boyfriend, partner, whatever that is. And it's actually that whole situation that we would then bring in our clinical advisor to provide the recommendation. Because I think one myth, and it actually really bothers me because I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on women that if there's an issue or a challenge with us, we are the problem, and that's all we kind of need to focus on. And that's not the case, because it's more than just, you know, blood type or the status of whatever our eggs are, our ovaries, and it's also the sperm as well, and the genetic makeup of, you know, the male partner, and the chromosomal, if there's any abnormalities, you know, on the male, you know, the male partner's side as well. So it's, you know, I can't say exactly what they would do, because it's really more than just the blood type. But what we would do is bring in our clinical advisor, set up a call, and he would obviously recommend additional sort of testing and records and things of the partner and you, and some history, so that we can come up with a personalized plan for you. Because, for instance, if someone had an Rh negative blood type, but they also, going to make it up, had fibroids and had, you know, chromosomal testing, and there was some abnormalities, it's actually a holistic approach, right, that we would need to kind of address there. So that's what we would do from our for our business, for the client, and then hold your hand along the way, and recommend any clinics that specialize with high risk. If there is a need for a third party to be involved in any way, we would also understand those needs, because the matching has to occur at that point as well. So if you're, you know, looking for, you know, a sperm donor, for example, there's additional testing. So we would make sure that all the recommendations, all of our partners specialize in those areas, have the qualifications, and also the success rates that are tied to that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Latrina. I hope that was helpful. Let us know. Anyone else, again, if you're watching this live, if you have any questions for Amma, or well, I was going to say, or myself, I have no answers. I'm here just facilitating the questions. But if you have any other questions for Amma about you personally, or about anything that Global Fertility Connections does. But Amma, while I am asking questions, I do want to know from you, what do you think, or let me see, why do you think there is, well, first of all, maybe there's not anymore, but I know when Dr. Brown was telling me to freeze my eggs, there wasn't a lot of information out there, at least not shared among Black women in their 30s at that point. I think more of us are becoming aware of egg freezing as an option now. And also, so talk to us a little bit about that, why it's important for you to share your own journey, which you can share with us, but also that this is a possibility for women to consider. And then also, well, let's start there, and then I have some other questions.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm so glad you asked that question, because that's actually what fueled me to start this business, the lack of information, or at least I couldn't find it. And then I spoke to so many other women, and they couldn't find it either. And then they would have conversations with doctors, and there were some gaps in the information, or it wasn't holistic enough, or it wasn't nuanced or personalized for them enough, or the doctor just may not have had enough time to give them the in-depth answer that they were really looking for. So then they go down sort of the Google hole, right? And it's interesting because it started with my own journey. So professionally, with my corporate job that I left to start this business, was actually focused on women's health. So I used to manage, you know, global women's health brand, launching innovation, you know, leading research, forming partnerships and connections with OBGYNs, reproductive endocrinologists. And that was my sort of dipping my toe into the whole world that little did I know I would dive all the way into the deep end in fertility. And while I was doing that job, back when I was in corporate America, I was going through my own fertility journey. I had been trying for about 4 years to have a baby, and was going through different fertility treatments, going to monitoring ultrasounds, taking hormones, taking medications, doing shots, doing something called IUI, which is intrauterine inseminations, did a few rounds of those, you know, the timed intercourse, all that stuff, right? And it was just hard. And I would try to find information, and I couldn't. And it took a toll on me mentally, physically, emotionally. And at the time I was married, and my marriage didn't survive it, because it was so much. It was too much. And after I was no longer married, and you know, after my divorce, all of a sudden everything switched. I went from focusing on trying to have a baby to, oh, I don't know if I can curse on this, so I'll just say, oh crap, right? Okay, I'm not married anymore. I still want to have a baby. So what do I do now? And that's when the world opened up around fertility preservation. And I did a lot of research, asked a lot of questions, and still found that it just wasn't easy enough. So my initial thought was, I'm just going to start an educational platform with information for women who want to freeze their eggs. And this is how there's always a higher power in everything that is for us and that is within our purpose. Because I had no idea that my little sort of website just to help women with information would grow into something global. And also what I like to say, go from dinner table talk, which is egg freezing, because it doesn't necessarily imply that there's an issue, right? Egg freezing shows that you're proactive. It shows that you're doing what it takes to empower yourself and take control, right? And there's not necessarily a negative connotation to it. So I call that dinner table talk. You can meet someone new and have a conversation. But now, we go all the way to the end of the funnel, which I like to call after drinks, after dinner conversation, which is surrogacy, right? We had some time to kind of get to know each other. I'm feeling a little more comfortable, and now we can have that conversation. And now we can help so many more people, because you don't really know what you need until you need it. And you don't know what you don't know until you get there. And that's really what we're here to do, is to help people with the things that they don't know, the steps that they haven't gotten to yet, prepare them and help them become aware of it without the stress, without the confusion. And to be honest, I totally respect and, healthcare doctors it's such an important part of what we do. But just like any other industry, there are sometimes ethical issues. And how do you know? And it's weird because people would think in fertility, oh, I don't have to worry about, it's not like a sleazy car salesman that's just trying. But there are, providers that exist, whether it's through surrogacy, whether it's an surrogacy agency, egg donor agency, or clinics that may not have the best intent or the intent that you're looking for in the service that they provide. And it's very difficult to know that. It's very difficult to know that before you experience it, but we know it, so we can share it.
Exactly. And so thank you for sharing that. And I always, when I talk about your company, when I'm telling people about your company, which I do often, I sometimes say Global Fertility Partners, because that's what I think of you all as. I'm like, Global Fertility Partners. Then I look it up and like, oh no, it's Global Fertility Connections. Yes.
But it's good to know that, because I'll add that in my keywords, so that even when people type in words like that, because you're right, we do have, partners.
But I feel like you are the other partners for sure. And then of course you have the partners that you work with.
But so we connect everyone.
You connect. No, exactly. It's perfect. It's my fault. I just think of selfishly how you're my partner.
And you know what? So, you're a really good example of what I was mentioning, because when we had our initial consultation, you're like, yeah, I froze my eggs at a clinic in New York. And I'm like, okay, which clinic? Because we know many clinics and we have personal relationships and professional relationships with many doctors. So when you said your doctor's name, I was like, oh yeah, I know him. This is
Exactly. And I think one of the things that I found most inspiring is the only word I can think of during our first conversation. One is you let me ask all of my questions and answer them, but then you also gave me questions to consider. And I think that's something that we don't necessarily get when we're doing the search. Nothing's wrong with searching on Google. We've been talking about that, but still you don't know what applies to you or what's really right or wrong or what the intention is, all these other things. And you might come up with other questions that don't really even pertain to you, as opposed to being able to talk to someone who can give you sort of the back and forth and be able to say, these are some questions. I think you all gave me homework. I still have my homework.
I sure did. That I'm still
like,
waiting.
This is what I know.
I'm still waiting for you to get back to me. So, but Raquel, you're right. You don't know what you don't know. And that's
you don't know. And you don't even know what to ask sometimes. So Raquel A. Russell, thank you so much for your question. I have my opinion, Raquel, but we're going to ask the professional. We're going to ask Amma. Is 27 too young to start to look into freezing your eggs, or just the right time? Amma, what do you say? I love this question.
Yeah, well, I love all questions around fertility. I could talk about this all day, but but I often like to address things that sort of dispel myths or go against maybe what people naturally believe. So, no is the answer to that question. 27 is not too young. And when you think about it, egg donors are typically in their 20s. So kind of think about that for a second, right? If for some reason you're in your 30s, 40s, whatever age, right, and you need an egg donor, that egg was retrieved most likely from a 20-something-year-old woman. So when you think about freezing your own eggs, you can almost think about it from the perspective of being your own egg donor, right? So don't you want as young of an egg as possible, right? Because egg quality, diminishes with age, and your eggs age with you. So do sperm. Sperm ages with men as well. So the younger, the better, right? And in just if you also think about it as how fast you could run, how flexible you were, in when you were 21 versus when you're 25 versus when you're 30, 35, 40, right? Are you still the same you still have the same flexibility? Can you run as far? Can you run as fast? Do you get a little ache in your knees, right? So it's the same thing with your eggs. Freezing them in your 20s at 27 is a great age to freeze. And also just kind of some current relevant news, because I like to share things, especially cross lines with different cultures. And, I have read and I have heard, right, from firsthand experience that, a lot of our white counterparts, fathers are gifting their daughters at college graduation an egg freezing cycle. So it time is changing things. It used to be, here's a, you take a year off and do some traveling around the world, an egg freezing cycle. And what that means is at 21, 22, whatever it is, you're freezing in time, whatever your fertility is at that moment, so that you don't have to bear the burden and the stress of worrying about it later on.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think, wow, that's amazing. And one of the things that Dr. Brown told me just 10 years ago was that she was like, I'm telling you, as time goes on, this is going to become more common. This is going to become more common. And now to hear that parents are doing that for their kids, I wonder if that's, well, you said most of your white clients, right? You said
Yeah,
most
and
of
our counterparts,
your,
yeah, because
and your
this was
counterparts,
actually,
yeah.
yeah,
But
one of the
this something.
conversations was not even a client, actually, and I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yes, so interesting. Someone
Yeah,
from
someone just
Facebook
said it's
said
an
it's an
investment.
investment. Well,
Exactly.
let's talk about that. And again, thank you, Raquel, for your question and thank you for that comment. Let's talk about the investment. So I'll just share my own journey real quick. One of the things that I didn't realize, because when I went to find out, the first thing you might hear or you might think, I can't afford it. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars. There's no way I can do this. But I was working full time at the time at Black Enterprise, and I had my regular health care. And then I also had flexible spending account. And when I went to the doctor and I went to the folks at the accounting department, I should say, at the doctor financial department, they knew, just like you, they know all the resources, they know what you can use, how you can work your insurance, different things that are covered, different things that aren't covered. And a large part of my treatment, or my procedure rather, ended up being paid for through my insurance, all legal, all on a level. But these were things that I didn't know. But if I had sat back with the myth, as you talked about, myths of, oh, I can't afford that, or that's not something I can do, or I have to be, rich, or my daddy has to gift it to me, I wouldn't have done it. So talk a little bit to us about pricing and what are some options that people can consider other than contacting AMA, globalfertilityconnections.com. Go ahead and
Yes.
do that. But just to tell us on here, what are some things that we might be thinking, we can't do because of money or investment that are possibilities?
Yeah, and this is actually part of the coaching that we provide. So in addition to surrogacy, like I said, we go from dinner table talk of egg freezing,
Mm-hmm.
and those clients, this is actually part of what we provide: financial planning, in addition to the coaching, in addition to nutrition, diet, recommendations, and holding your hand along the way, so you know what to provide, what to expect, what medications can cause certain side effects, when you should take certain medications at what time. Oh my gosh, I left mine out of the refrigerator, is it okay? Right? Things that might take a little longer to get a response from your doctor, you can text us, and as we're there for you, right? And we have our doctor on staff and on call as well to help facilitate that. But with part of the financial planning, there's actually many options. So when you think about just kind of taking a step back to what that pricing could look like, It's such a wide range because it really depends on geographic location, depends on clinic type. Before we even get into getting it, covered, right? Whether it's covered by insurance, it could range from anywhere around $8,000 to anywhere around $15,000. And the big swing in that is usually based on medications, and medication will vary depending on your individual circumstance, whatever your fertility assessment is, and the types of medications that are prescribed to you. Some are just more expensive, and one individual might need a higher dosage or a lower dosage, or a few different medications versus a little less. So that big swing in price is significantly driven by medication. Because the medications can be pricey. And then also the second major contributor to the swinging cost is the clinic price and what's included in that, which really can vary, right? So like I said, it can range in, I'm sorry that it's such a big range, but it can be, like a $10,000, $12,000 difference between $8,000 or $15,000, right? So that's the overall cost of what one can expect. But then when you think about what's covered, so I have a little tip, right, for anyone listening. Start going to your fertility doctor or reproductive endocrinologist before you start making decisions. Get a fertility assessment, get some information, and have them, draw blood, do an ultrasound, understand your current fertility status at that particular time before you start anything. Because, and here's another little tip, with fertility coverage for a lot of insurances, just broad base, you'll get covered if there is proof of infertility. So I'll use myself as an example. I was trying to have a baby for 4 years. So when I decided to freeze my eggs because my life changed, I had all the information, testing, and doctors, right, to attest that this part of the cycle should be covered, because it does fall under a case of infertility, because I hadn't gotten pregnant. And it doesn't mean, and I also want to dispel the myth that infertility is permanent. Infertility is not permanent. It doesn't have to be permanent. It's really about understanding what the cause is and helping find solutions, because families can be built in so many different ways. So that's one thing. Go before you're ready to start the cycle, because, if you're going for a while and the doctor is finding more and more information, and it could be something like fibroids that would prevent you from being able to conceive, right? But now you have the records, right, from the doctors to show, hey, this part of the process should be covered. So that's one thing. The other is more and more companies are starting to provide supplemental insurance coverage. So things like coverage that would fall under a company, for example, called Carrot or Progeny, right? These are examples of supplemental programs that more companies are bringing on, in addition to whatever your standard health insurance could be. So it could be, I'm going to make it up, United, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, whatever it is. Some companies are now bringing on additional supplemental coverage. So there's that. And then you also have different programs within different states. And so I had a client who was recently diagnosed with cancer, right? And at first she's like, oh my gosh, I want to freeze my eggs because of, what might occur with the treatment and how it might affect her fertility. And she's like, I don't know, I'm going to, pay for it. But it fell under because the reason that why she was doing it was because of a medical condition. And, cancer is hard, it's extreme, but there are other medical conditions as well that could potentially fall under that, where yes, it gets covered, and her insurance covered all of it. So, to me, the main message is make sure you're going to the doctor regularly. And it's okay to go to the fertility doctor before you're even concerned about having a baby. Because I did it as soon as I got married, and I was like, I just want to make sure everything's working right. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm going to skip the OBGYN. I just, and it's great, right? Because the more you know, right? And the earlier you know, the more you're giving yourself an opportunity to get any assistance and guidance and support that you need to help empower yourself. So those are some
Great
instances that
tips.
help support. Yeah.
Yes, and as I popped up on the screen on Facebook, someone said, just wanted to add as FYI, just what you talked about, Amma, that more companies are now offering financial support for surrogacy, egg freezing, IVF as part of their benefits package for new hires. So make sure you ask. I think to your great point, Amma, going to the doctor first, getting the assessment, seeing where you stand kind of thing, then doing the research and talking to your company or your healthcare provider to find out what kind of things are covered. And that was, in my experience, just to mention, when I called my insurance company to find out about the medication, they covered the other things that I mentioned for the procedure, but they didn't cover the medication because it wasn't a situation like you mentioned where I had been trying for a while. They said they would have covered it if I had been trying to get pregnant. And then, so again, everybody's situation is different and everybody's, circumstance is different. But because I was just freezing and didn't, as far as I knew at the time, have any conditions or anything or hadn't been trying, that part wasn't covered, but it still made a big difference. I think mine was probably about, like you said, about 12,000 or so. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe 8,000 or part of it was covered. And then I just
Mm-hmm.
had to pay for the medication. So it still was a big help. But again, as Amma has said, and as tell me who you are on Facebook, it just shows up this Facebook user. Tell us who you are if you want to share who you are. But also there are companies now are doing it a lot more. I think Facebook actually is a
Yep.
company that's, and a couple of other tech companies are starting to
Netflix
provide
is
that.
doing it. Google
Yeah.
is doing it. There's quite a few companies. And if you work
AT.
for a large health system, they usually cover it as well. It's kind of weird to work for, a hospital system. They're like, no, we're not going to cover your fertility benefits.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Won't be surprising, but yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be
Starbucks
it. Thank you.
also
Oh,
covers it.
good.
Yeah, so
Very
I've heard of
good.
cases where a client may have a full-time job working, I'm going to make it up, I don't know, in banking, but have picked up a part-time role at Starbucks in order to have those benefits be able to cover.
Oh, right, because they cover part-time.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All
I'm,
right,
I'm,
so I
I'm
want
dropping
to
some gems today, some little tidbits to help
I
with
know you are
saving some money.
listen, y'all better get in touch with I'm at Global Fertility Connections. See, I almost said partners again. Globalfertilityconnections.com. Hey,
Mhm.
Lane. Hey, Alma. That was me mentioning. Oh, that was Tia mentioning
Hi,
about corporate
Tia.
benefits.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Yeah, you're
So,
absolutely right. And thank you for
so
that comment.
yeah. So, Alma, I want to know if now being a woman in my 40s, again, even though I look 25, you don't have to say it. I already know. Being a woman in
It's
my
true.
40s.
It's so true.
But now, so say there are women on here who are at that point and maybe maybe they have or they haven't frozen their eggs. I know it's a big question. You probably can't answer it in 5 minutes or so, but what are some of the things that we should consider? So say starting with me as someone who did freeze my eggs and then we had a conversation, what are some of the first questions I need to ask myself if I'm ready to take that next step? Maybe the top 3 questions because I know there are plenty. And
Yeah, there's
Latrina
so many.
just mentioned the website again, globalfertilityconnections.com.
Yes.
Globalfertilityconnections.com. All right, tell us, Alma.
Um, yeah, so there's so many, connections with an S at the end. Or you can just
Mm-hmm.
Google Global Fertility Connections and it should come up as well. Just don't forget the S and
Yes, it should be in the
connections.
description also if you're on LinkedIn, Latrina. You should see it there. The globalfertilityconnections.com.
Yeah, so there's so many different types of questions. But so here's what I'll do. I will give, I would say, some of the things that are most critical for us to know in the
Mm-hmm.
upfront, right? First is age. Then it's what the motivation is, right? Because a lot of this starts mentally and emotionally. Where are you in life? Where is your mindset? Are you in, a partner? Do you have a partner? Are you in a relationship? Are you single? We get all of that. I guess it can fall under sort of demographic information, but it's so important to understand where the mindset might be, right? And the sense of urgency. I had one of our partners say, "Yeah, I'm going to send you someone." I had a patient, and she's like, "My birthday's in July. I'm turning 35, and I need to freeze my eggs before my birthday." Right? So right, so she gave us a lot of the information we want to know. Age, oh, and I also knew where she was located. And sense of urgency, right? Mindset, age, where she was located, and she was single, right? So that's some of the preliminary information that we like to know. And then it's how comfortable they are with different parts of the process and what information do they already know. Thank you, Dr. Renee Matthews, for
Yes,
sharing that
thank
with
you
us.
very
I
much.
appreciate that. And in terms of wh- what's important to them at this very moment, right? And then a third piece is tell us anything about your history that may be tied to your fertility. Where have you been on your journey? Have you done anything in the past? Do you know that you're genetically predisposed to certain things, right? So fibroids are very common for women of color. And I wish it was talked about more often. But oftentimes, somewhere in the family, whether it's a mother, a grandmother, a aunt, a sister, may be struggling or have struggled with something, and we're not talking about it enough amongst friends and family. But getting that type of information as well, so we can understand in the upfront where you currently are. So, or endometriosis, right? So, there's a lot of women that suffer with endometriosis. We would need to know that in the upfront, right? Because that also gives us a lot of information before we even pass it on or have our consultation or review with our clinical advisor, who is a reproductive endocrinologist with decades of experience. Some of it, we already know, like I said, some of it is through osmosis. I don't have a medical degree, but a lot of conversations with doctors. But if I have a client that comes along who is 40 and has been trying for 10 years and has gone through 5 numerous rounds of IVF cycles and hasn't conceived, the next question I'm going to ask is, do you have a history of, and I'll list, fibroids, endometriosis? Yeah, I have endometriosis. I forgot to mention I had a procedure where, they did this. And that's when we start to hone in, well, how long ago was that? Which procedure did they do? And then, in some circumstances, of course, with the approval, and this from firsthand experience as well, we'll ask for the clinic or the patient to share their medical records, especially when it's a particular case where it seems unexplainable to the particular client and they have seen many doctors. That is one where we have a whole meeting with the clinical advising team, and also bringing our consultants as well, because they've worked very closely with doctors and had a lot of conversations with the client side of it, right? More intimate conversations, so it's a holistic conversation. And all it takes sometimes, and this is where it's like, sometimes it's a classic case of Black women being ignored, and it has to stop, because I had a case where, we asked all the preliminary questions. We knew where she was. We knew the age. We found out about the endometriosis. We knew the procedure she had. And it was something as simple as the doctors that kept doing IVF cycles. One, they were feeding some of the cause, right? That was, there was still remnants of the endometriosis. So the procedure that she had didn't get it all. And instead of taking a step back, looking in her records from before they saw her as a patient, they were continuing to just kind of like throw things against the wall and see what sticks. But her body is going through this, right? And it's side effects of these hormones. It's weight gain, it's mood changes. It messes, it can alter your mindset, and it can cause some depression, right? She's going through this, but they're like, let's just try this, let's just try that.
Like
And
experimenting basically on this person's
experimenting, right?
body.
Which
Yes.
some part of healthcare is that, right? Because you never know what might work. But it just took paying attention and giving her the time and attention to go through the records. And our team with, our clinical advisor was able to identify, here's where the issue is. The endometriosis.
So tell us what endometriosis is. And again, Alma's not a doctor, but she
I'm not
does
a doctor.
deal with these things all the time. But tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So, well, first I wanted to kind of finish answering your initial question of, what we needed to ask that then sort of changed the trajectory of this particular client is once we were able to get to the root of the issue, my clinical advisor asked her a series of questions about the date of the procedure, who did the procedure. You know, we're infamous for saying, who was your doctor? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Finding that out, understanding, you know, sometimes our team knows who that doctor is. They know what their specialties are. And this particular doctor was actually not an endometrious surgeon. They were an OBGYN.
Mm.
So think about it, right? If you go to a makeup artist, right, and it's a makeup artist that this is what they do all day, every day, versus a makeup artist who also does hair, who also does nails, who also does massages, right, who also does lashes, like it's unlikely that they're going to be great at all of that stuff, right? So that was another issue, and who did her surgery didn't have as much experience with that. And you know, the definition, right, of endometriosis, which is often painful, but sometimes the side effects is not necessarily pain, but it's tissue, right? So it's tissue that is normally lines the inside of the uterus, grows outside of the uterus and can accumulate, and you know, can involve your ovaries, it can involve fallopian tubes, and you know, the lining of the pelvis, and it can cause pain, it can cause irregularities with your menstrual cycle, uh, and those are more common symptoms that are often easily recognized, especially the pain. But another symptom is infertility, which sometimes is ignored. And in this particular case, you know, we had the meeting with her and our clinical advisor where, you know, he had to say that. He's like, you know, a lot of times with endometriosis, you know, because you don't feel pain during your cycle, because your cycle is regular, it's a little dismissed, like it's like you're fine. But if it's not all addressed and all taken out, it'll continue to grow. And then you, coupled with the hormones and medication through the IVF cycle, it actually exacerbated the problem. So these are
Mm.
just some of the things that we just, and this is a real soft spot for me because I love Black women. I love Black people, right? I mean, I love everybody, right? But I'm a Black woman. So, you know, part of my purpose is really to help a culture that I'm a part of. And we're often ignored, you know, or just kind of treated blanketly like, okay, try this, try that. And I think it's time that we get the care and attention that we need, which is what we're trying to do one client at a time. So.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to go back just from a historical context, right? So the industry or gynecology, what was it? Is it Marion Sims, Dr. Marion Sims? I think the gentleman's name, well, gentleman, the man's name is, who operated on Black women, enslaved Black women, without anesthesia and all of these things to learn more about them for gynecology, essentially. And there were statues erected to him that I think now have been brought down because that was cruel and punishing. So there has been just a history there of, you know, our pain being ignored or us not being thought of as human, certainly, or hopefully not as much in common in current times, I should say. But there is, I can understand why there is that feeling there, like you said, a love for Black women, and then just looking from a historical trauma standpoint of knowing what we went through as women to be able to say, no, this is bothering me. This is my pain. And my pain is real. And also you think about even Black women celebrities have started speaking out more about the importance of not ignoring our pain. So Serena Williams, after she had
Mhm.
her baby, and talking about how she had to really advocate for herself in that moment, and wondering if the doctors would have listened if she wasn't Serena Williams, right?
Mhm.
Beyonce mentioned that, and there was someone else too who talked about that. So
It's
you
so
don't have to be.
common. And
It's
and
so
part of
common,
also
yeah.
what we provide,
We get talked
especially
out of our
in
own pain sometimes.
exactly. And that's actually what I was going to address with the coaching that we provide, right, along this
Mhm.
journey with our clients, is to listen to your body. I said that to a
Right.
client recently the other day. I said, you know, she had just gone through a cycle and an egg freezing cycle, so a retrieval. And I said, you know, here's what you can expect. Here's what's normal. You know, you have to take antibiotics, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, then I said, but if there's anything abnormal, if you feel like something is not right, right? You're not a doctor, but you know your body better than any doctor knows it, right? You know what's normal. You know how you feel when you get up in the morning. You know how you feel after you've done exercise, after you eat too much, when you eat, cookies, when you drink milk. Oh, my stomach, you know that. And that's why it requires communication to a doctor. And it's based on what you communicate to them, which helps them get a better understanding, right? In addition to tests and monitoring and ultrasounds and things like that, to get a holistic view. But you know how you feel. You know what's normal to you. And don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, And I think also sometimes we just expect it to be the case. Like, oh, yeah, I always get really bad headaches on the 6th of every
Yes.
month. I always
Oh,
get really sharp pains. Okay, let's talk
I've
about that.
always felt like this. Right. That's not normal. Exactly. And I've done that before too. Like I've always gotten migraines. It's like, that's not okay. Or even if that's true, let's find out if you can not have migraines all the time or not have such terrible cramps or not be whatever the things are. I think too, would you say, Amma, it's important, one, of having a company like Global Fertility Connections as a partner through this journey, but I think overall too, not being afraid for a lot of us to get a second opinion or third,
Mm-hmm.
or, we're like, well, my doctor says this, and we take it as gospel. And even if the doctor doesn't have bad intentions, with most doctors obviously have good intentions, that's why they're doctors, but they might have missed something, or they might not have, as you said, a specialty, or
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different reasons to just get other folks to weigh in, or maybe it's a different type of doctor that you
Mm-hmm.
try. If what has been recommended is not working, and as you said, your body, especially when something is wrong, no one, even if you can't articulate the feeling, if something doesn't feel right. So don't stop just because a doctor or whoever said, oh, well, you've always gotten that, or ignore it, or it's common.
And that's what we're here to do also is, when you think about who is here protecting intended parents, who is
Right.
here protecting women who are going through cycles or any part of a fertility journey or a process, who is protecting us? And that is also what motivated us and inspired us to start this company, because there has to be an advocate. And yes, we all need to advocate for ourselves, but it's also nice when you have someone who can provide a second opinion and advocate for you and say something about this is not right. Something
Mm-hmm.
is not right. Maybe they missed something. I'm going to have a second pair of eyes. I'm going to have my doctor review your records and see what his recommendation would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll discuss as a group as well. Have you seen this before? And usually one of us have seen something similar, especially working with different clients, patients in clinics. And if something doesn't look right, if something doesn't smell right, we get that second opinion, and without being an alarmist, right? Because it's no one loves an alarmist, right?
Right.
It's let's have a conversation. And something else that we do is we empower our clients to have the conversations with their doctors and remind them and reinforce that it's okay. And here's what you can ask. I've had clients say, can you actually type the email for me, send it to me so I know exactly what to ask? Because I know that this should be able to be asked. So if you get
Right.
pushed off, that's another problem. If you can't set
Don't
a
worry about offending your doctor by
no,
asking questions.
no,
Right.
no. And I know what should be answered, and I also know in the time frame by which it should be answered. If you've just done a cycle, you should be able to have a follow-up conversation, post procedure with your doctor relatively soon, within a few days. It is not normal to get postponed 3 weeks out,
Hmm.
right? But and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think as a community, because even outside of fertility, this happened with my nephew when he was a very little baby, and he was a newborn. And my brother called to make an appointment because I saw something, abnormal with his scalp. And they said he called to make an appointment, and they told my brother, "Oh yeah, we can see him in 3 weeks." And my brother said, "Okay," and hung up. I said, this baby is 2 weeks old. Did you tell him the baby's 2 weeks old? We need to come in today. Right.
Right. Right. This
So
is
when we,
urgent.
right, you call back and you're like, oh, we didn't know the circumstance. We didn't understand. You should have said that. Okay. Yes. Come in now. But as generally as in society, we kind of, I don't know, we expect that, or we just think that we should accept, okay, the doctor
Mm-hmm.
said this, the staff said this is what it has to be. And that's not always the case. That's not always the
Mm-hmm.
case.
So before I let you go, Amma, tell folks who might be wondering just how, when working with you all with Global Fertility Connections, how does it work as far as compensation? Because again, we don't want someone to walk away with the myth of, oh no, I can't contact Amma and Global Fertility Connections because I can't afford to, even if they have no idea what the cost is or you come up with this imagined price. What we're trying to do is make sure you all know you have access to information. So tell us how it works with you and how you all work with your partners and work with your clients.
Yeah, so I'll start with the egg freezing coaching. We also call ourselves egg freezing doulas. That's just a couple of $100s, and we kept in mind with the pricing. Because I remember when I was going through one of my cycles the first time, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I would have just paid somebody a couple $100s just to tell me what to do, to tell me what to expect, to handle this stuff for me." Right. So our pricing ranges between $300 and $500, depending on the personalized package. And
Mm-hmm.
then as it relates to surrogacy, third party coaching, it really varies. So if it's sort of you need everything and you need a clinic and you need a surrogacy agency, there's actually some fees that are waived because with our partnerships, the fees are actually covered by our partners. Now, if it's other things like putting together a full plan and doing all the research and doing comparative options for you based on what you need, so budget, location, success rates, experience, legal, right? So wherever you're located, that's usually personalized depending on the individual case, and that can range because if you need sort of, let's say you're looking for an egg donor and that's it, that's a couple $100s. But if you need an egg donor, if you're looking for a surrogate that needs to fit a certain profile, you also need a clinic, but you're also in a state that you have to understand the legal ramifications, and then you don't know the surrogacy process at all, that can sort of range a little higher. But we try to keep our fees reasonable and customized. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's not sort of like a McDonald's menu where you're like, I want the number
Right.
one, I cost that. The closest we have to
Right.
that is the egg freezing cycle package, which is between $300 and $500. But everything else is customized. So
Good. Good to know. Thank you so much. This is, I mean, like you said, I could talk to you about this forever, especially if I ask all my own personal questions, which I certainly can do forever. But I just appreciate you. One, I appreciate, as I think I've told you before, the existence of your business, the fact that you answered the call to create a company and a service like this for women, for families who are in need of just, again, some support. That's what we're all about here. Support is sexy, of knowing that support is out there. And then for you to be a voice and a lead and a stand for Black women who are going through this process, who might not either have access to information or just even know that this information is out there and that exists and that you can share your personal journey. So in all those ways, I'm just so grateful to know you and to be working with you. And we're going to get me all together. I'm back on. Now I'm
we
a book camp.
are, we
I
are.
birthed that
Follow
baby.
up with
Now
your
I'm working on
homework.
it. Exactly.
But
Wanted to see.
just one thing I wanted to add as we close
Yeah,
out
yeah.
is that this support is not only for those who need it. So it's not only
Mm,
just for women, for men, for couples, whether heterosexual, same sex couples, singles, Black women. It is also to support the clinics, the IVF
mm,
clinics, and the surrogacy agencies, because we work together, and doctors appreciate that there is another resource. They send clients, they send their patients to us because they're like, okay, she needs coaching, she needs support. Yes, we can do the clinical piece of it, but she needs that support, and she needs help, decision making help, right? And she
right.
she has a lot of questions around options, right, which don't necessarily include my clinic, right? It's other things, and they send them to us. So the support is also for the reproductive service providers as well. So in the spirit of support is sexy, support is very sexy because it's also sexy for IVF clinics, it's sexy for surrogacy agencies, and it's sexy for clients, patients, and intended parents like us.
I'm so glad you add. That's a great and excellent, excellent point. And one of the things, everyone, I'll tell you about, this is how goofy I am. I can't remember if it was you, or a friend of mine who went through the process and had her baby through a donor. I think she had a donor egg and then donor sperm. But she sent me some, like an agency that she used to look for her sperm donor. So I'm looking through and I found somebody. I was like, oh, but he's only 19. And she's like, you're not dating him. You want this? I was like, oh, right. That's right. This isn't a dating site. This is so it's so funny. Again, that support needs to be there to be like, hello, you would love some young sperm that could get you pregnant easily, as opposed to, finding
Yeah,
an old man your age.
exactly. And
You're not dating this person.
helping you prioritize that of the list of things to look for. Age
Right.
is actually lower on the priority list. Let's talk about
I'm
height. Let's
telling
talk
you.
about family history. Let's talk about
Exactly. He was perfect. I was like, oh, he's too young. She's like, you are not lit. Anyway, girl. So this is why I need help. We all need help. But thank you so much, Alma, for being so generous with your time and information. Everyone, again, as Dr. Renee put up here for us, Alma's website is globalfertilityconnections.com. I have it in the description here. You can click on the link. If you're listening to this on the podcast later, of course, we'll have all of this in the show notes, a link to get in touch with Alma. Anything else you want to share with us, Alma, about where people can find you, where they can follow you, and Global Fertility Connections on social media? What's the best way
Yes,
for us to
on
connect with you?
Instagram, you can follow us at Global Fertility Connections. On Facebook, you can also follow us at Global Fertility Connections. And like you mentioned, our website is globalfertilityconnections.com. Feel free to book a consultation, send us a note. You can contact us through the contact form, which goes to our info line as well. And we're just here to help, just one client at a time, building one family at a time, helping to create, babies, right?
Create families. Beautiful, Alma. Thank you. Oh, one other question. Do you all work with adoption agencies as well, or is that something separate?
So we primarily don't focus on the adoption piece. However, because we do have a client now, part of the services that we provide with all the options, if someone is open to adoption, we do include that and some high level information on comparatively speaking, how that lines up with the options for surrogacy, traditional surrogacy, gestational surrogacy, the different options within that. Because for some people, they're considering it all, right? And they kind of need to kind of lay it out and see, okay, this does that, timing for this, timing for that, cost for this, cost for
Right.
that. So that is where we'll provide some guidance on that to help them with their decision making.
Okay.
But we don't work
Excellent.
with adoption agencies.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Hold on one second. Thank you, everyone, so much for your questions, for being so open here and sharing with us. And everyone, again, if you're watching this on replay, go ahead and drop your question in. I'll make sure I take a peek and we'll get them to Alma so she can answer them. All right. Hold on just one second.